Side 2 begins with Faust Up, the shortest track in this album with a length of about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, starting right off with a very quiet count of 4, then a seemingly lone acoustic guitar from either Ed O'Brien or Johnny Greenwood plays us into the second half of this album, as Tom sings to us to wakey wakey and to rise and shine. And it's on again, off again, on again. Probably trying to restart and reboot his alarm clock. His vocal delivery, the occasional double harmonic tracking of said vocals, and the guitar itself do all remind me of early Pink Floyd, specifically songs such as Grantchester Meadows and A Pillow of Winds. Assuming, of course, he doesn't break said winds. Then a violin soon enters the mix, adding another melancholy layer into it, as Tom sings about being dead from the neck up because he's all stuffed. Which is bound to happen if you took one wafer-thin mint too many. And in the last few lines, Tom sings that you've got a head full of feathers and you've melted into butter, which would probably make a delicious roast dinner. Anyways, this is a pretty short and sweet song that deals mostly with being stuck in the same old situation and routine over and over, time and time again. Although, if the use of Faust in the title is to be any indication, he'd probably make a deal with Mephistopheles as well. No doubt to sell his marriage for the life of his aunt for the umpteenth time. Next is Reckoner, another underrated track of Radiohead's in my opinion, with its reverb-filtered tinny percussion by Philip Selway, isolated guitar melodies, the bass line by Colin Greenwood, and Tom York's always iconic and always recognizable falsetto vocals. Plus, yet another stringed arrangement from Johnny Greenwood himself to boost. Here, Tom refers to us as a reckoner. A reckoner of what exactly? Who knows? Probably a reckoner of souls, or a reckoner of Gotham, perhaps. He says that you're not to blame for bittersweet distractors. Nor are the sunshine, moonlight, or good times to blame either. Instead, blame it on the bogey. However, he also warns to dare not speak of its name. You know who, perhaps? No doubt he's probably talking about a particular bold villain from a fantasy franchise that began in the early 2000s. Must be Master Xehanort. And in what could be considered the middle eight section of the song, Tom mentions how we separate like ripples on a blank shore. One could hear a ghostly backing voice singing what may sound like In Rainbows. Well, at least there's an album title drop there. Anyways, this is definitely one of among Radiohead's more chill tracks. It's both personal and intimate, as well as soothing and relaxing. Then we have House of Cards, the longest track of this album, with a length up to 5.5 minutes. And unlike an actual House of Cards, this song won't be falling apart that easily. Featuring another predominantly chunky guitar and bass riff, Tom sings how he doesn't want to just be a friend, he wants to be your lover. Well, if he wants to be my lover, he's got to get with my friends and make it last forever, for friendship never ends. He then says to forget about your house of cards and he'll deal with his, likely using such as a metaphor for unstable and unhealthy relationships, as Tom asks this person to get out of their failing relationship as he tries to get out of his as well. Fall under the table and get swept under denial. Denial that you've just spilt a perfectly good glass of wine. Throw your keys in the bowl because your house burnt tonight. So that explains how the car keys would keep getting misplaced. They just got incinerated along with the rest of the house. And by the end, among a repeating of denial, Tom also sings that your ears should be burning, likely either from the literal burning of the house itself, or having an ice pick embedded in your ears, just like what happened with Leon a few weeks ago. Afterwards is Jigsaw Falling Into Place, a basic beat of a song that could make your head bob to it. This song pretty much deals with going out for a fine night at the pub, having drinks, having your favorite song play on the jukebox, writing out numbers, etc. So basically, any normal usual late Saturday night in England. I can relate. The overall song in question was said to be inspired by some of the chaos that Tom himself had witnessed whenever he'd go out to town in Oxford for a weekend or two. Again, pretty much very normal here in the UK. Then the walls start to abandon shape, getting a Cheshire cat's grin. So is Jeff the Killer hiding inside one of the walls? Or did said walls fall under the curse of that from that recent Smile film? By the way, if you want to watch a really good and original horror film this Halloween, go check out Smile. I highly recommend it. And before the animal noises, before the night owl, and before the closed-circuit cameras, you may end up comatose. Obviously representing excessive alcohol consumption to the point of just going out unconscious and having a major hangover by the next morning. Hopefully this time it doesn't come across a monkey, a freshly cut finger, and Kate Jeong. Music itself could also pretty much sum up how it may feel being the most and possibly only sober person in the bar or pub. I know how that may feel. Don't get me started on my recent holiday in Barcelona. And so our album ends with Videotape, a slow tearjerker of a piano-centric ballad where we seemingly and fittingly reach the afterlife, considering the previous track was no doubt caused by alcohol poisoning. Tom declares that when he's at the pearly gates, it'll be on his videotape. He's going to prove to the world that heaven, and by extent Jesus and God, do really exist. At least he would, but unfortunately he didn't really plan all that far ahead, since he hasn't figured out how he's going to come back to life on Earth. On top of that, Mephistopheles is just beneath him and trying to reach up and grab him down. I guess he doesn't really want Tom's marriage anymore then, and just wants Tom's soul. Good, I guess. As he admits in the lyrics themselves, this is kind of his way of saying goodbye because apparently he can't do it face to face. I guess he figured he'd write his own funeral song well in advance, just in case. Kudos for that kind of genius. However, at the same time, he manages to comfort us, saying that no matter what happens now, we shouldn't be afraid, because he knows today has been the most perfect day he has ever seen. There's definitely quite a lot you could potentially read into it. Similar to Peter Gabriel's I Grieve from his Up album, this may be dealing with the fear of not only dying, but also being forgotten as well, ceasing to exist, while realizing and soon learning to cope and take comfort instead of constantly worrying. Make every day the most perfect day as if it were your last. While one may easily consider this kind of song very depressing and very much a downer note, and I may understand so, it's still a very thought-provoking track nonetheless. Heck, all of Radiohead's songs could be considered thought-provoking anyway. But this is definitely and honestly a perfect song to conclude such an album like this. And that was In Rainbows by Radiohead, and is pretty good. I mean, all of Radiohead's albums are really good anyways, so this is certainly no exception. It manages to maintain the distinct and styles of previous Radiohead albums while still managing to be fresh, modern, and unique sounding enough to be its own thing. Tom York's albums are just as familiar and well arranged as usual. The lyrics are vague and wonderfully cryptic, and the instrumentation from the fellow band members are generally moody and emotional yet. Not to mention, the use of strings here add to the musical icing on this cake. If you want to get into Radiohead, or you're just a big fan of modern experimental rock music in general, check out this album on CD, vinyl, streaming, or however else, and taste the rainbow. And for those of you who have already listened to this album, what are your thoughts on it? Would you consider this Radiohead's best album, or do you prefer another one of theirs more? Let your thoughts be known down below in the comments. Next time, after covering 2 albums from the 70s and 1 album from the 2000s, we go back to the 70s for 2 more albums. The first of which, well, we're gonna get ourselves some news. News of the world. By the way, when are you gonna do Hail to the Thief anyways? I'll probably do that in the summer next year if I get the chance. And a copy of it perhaps as well.